Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are having a look at a dev Q&A which has come out, and the other news that came out today is about World War Mode. We'll cover that tomorrow since the event will be starting on the 9th. When it comes to the Q&A, there's a bunch of different parts to it. There's a ground forces, there's an aviation, a helicopter, and a naval. The way that I'll split it up into videos is there'll be one about ground, one about aviation, and then another covering helicopters and naval together, so we can go through it all. Obviously, when it comes to this, it's all my thoughts about the general ideas and what is coming forward. The answers are by Vyacheslav Bulanikov. If you don't know who that is, that's BVVD, who we see on the sneak peek streams. And we get one of these like what it feels like every half a year or so. So yeah, we'll just get through it. As always, if you enjoy this type of video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. The first question is, are there any plans for a subtree for the Italian ground forces line to bolster their lineup, such in the same way South Africa and Finnish vehicles provided their respective trees? And the answer is, of course, yes, we have such plans. So that's probably something we're going to see this year. They already talked about in a kind of news article a little bit ago, maybe about a month ago now, that they were looking into Hungarian vehicles and how to add them into the game. That was what BVD said as well in that article. When it comes to Italy, of course, they've confirmed in the past that it's going to be more of a dumping ground for other Axis nations, the minor Axis nations of the Second World War, which could easily expand into, obviously, modern day stuff. You have Hungary, you have Romania, and you have all of that little group of countries that you could easily add. On top of this, you could pretty much add anything from Europe in there. I've talked about this a lot, where Gagin have pretty much used every justification in the book to be able to add anything they've wanted to add anywhere for any nation. So whatever gets added to Italy will be a positive. The Italian tech tree is not too bad when it comes to aviation. They have the best propeller aircraft in the game. They're super fun to play. Where they lack is at the top tier in ground, where in ground they do struggle. They've already said that they're going to be improving the Ariete soon. I'm sure they'll just add a new round to it, because that seems to be their fix-all for everything when it comes to that area. Instead of removing power, they just add additional power on top of things. But the fact is, Italy at top tier needs a little bit of help. So if they add in other nations which have Leopard 2s or have something similar, then of course it will be an improvement. There is a lot of nice areas of Italy though, like the SPGs at lower tier are very nice. They have some really nice light tanks in the mid tiers. It really is just the top tier that suffers. The rest of it is actually pretty good. They have a fantastic 8.7 and 9.0 area, and between 6.0 to 7.0, there's a ton of beautiful lineups as well. If you haven't given it a go and all you've heard about Italy is that the tech tree isn't very good, just give it a go. See what happens and see how you feel about it. I personally quite enjoy it. With the recent rework of domestic crew voices for naval forces, is it possible we will see something similar for ground forces, including the subtree nations of South Africa and Finland, as well as separated crew voices for British ground vehicles that currently still use American crews? And the answer is yes, we are already working on it, which is fantastic to hear. One of the things that would be nice is just more options, and also not just unique ones for South Africa and Finland, and also anybody else who comes in. One of the things that would be cool is if you had specific voice lines which were attached to battle passes or attached to events, and be able to chop and change in the different stuff. One of the things that I really liked about Dota back in the day, because I used to play a decent amount of Dota 2, was you could change the announcer if you had different ones unlocked through different areas. Whether it be like the stuff for the international, or whether it just be, general other content. It was kind of nice to switch it up every once in a while and sound different. And in War Thunder, it would be nice to, every once in a while, just have just a different voice line that you could chop and change in. One of the areas of the game that, hasn't really seen too much change is the voice dialogue area for aviation and ground. Obviously, Naval got a big revamp the last update, and it sounds very good now. Now all we need for them is the American voice lines, which I'm sure will come in. But overall, I'm just hoping there'll be a little bit more customization. Same with all the profile stuff as well. I think that's the area of War Thunder that really could expand quite aggressively. Some years ago, it was mentioned that more British light tanks were under consideration. Are there any plans for many of their most famous, such as the Saladin, the Scorpion, FV721 Fox, the Ferret, and the FV432/30, and several warrior variants that currently have not found their way to the game? Is there a potential for a whole light tank-based line, as there are domestic examples available to add from almost all ranks? And of course, the answer is yes. The vehicles are in planning. Who could have seen it coming? Like I've mentioned this a lot, like when it comes to War Thunder, and I feel like I'm mentioning it over and over again. If you are asking, is X vehicle coming? The answer, as long as the vehicle existed and was produced and made, is yes. It's just a when, not an if. Like when it comes to these stuff. So yeah. Like, we've seen a massive expansion of light vehicles in the German tech tree, we've seen a massive expansion in the Italian tech tree, and also in the American tech tree. Of course, Britain has to wait its turn, because Britain is not allowed, when it comes to the game, to get anything which is meta-defining. It has to be at least 6 months to a year after everybody else gets their shiny toys, but Britain will eventually get stuff, don't worry. The poor lightning, that's all I'll say every time. But don't worry, the light tanks will come in. With the new directional damage indicators in ground forces, are there any plans or considerations for allowing an option to switch between the new/old effects, or turning them off for greater customization? And the answer is the work is in progress right now, and we'll probably implement it in the first major update of 2023. Oh, that's cool. That was actually something I was thinking about the other day. Because the old effects, I still think are quite nice. The new effects are very much more arcadey, is probably the way I would put it. They're not bad. They just, as when it comes to War Thunder, one of the things that Gaijin has prioritized a lot in the past is immersion. The idea that you are engrossed in the environment. But when you add like arcadey markers and stuff like that, it kind of feels like away from that general goal that they've talked about in the past. So it was really odd that they added it in, but you couldn't revert it or remove it from the whole UI. So the fact that they are actually doing that stuff, that's actually pretty cool. I'm kind of surprised, if I'm honest. Usually what they do is when they bring in new stuff, it's just in with the new, out with the old. There's no like switching or anything like that. It's just a straight replacement. So this is kind of cool to hear. When will the rank of a vehicle and accordingly its profitability be changed in accordance with the battle rating of a vehicle that has had its BR changed multiple times? For example, the EBR 1954, which initially had a BR of 4.7 and rank 3, but now after BR raise it is 6.3 and the rank is still 3, and accordingly the profitability, which is at the level of an AMX 13M24, which has a BR of 3.7, and the rank is actually 2. And the answer is, the SL multiplier does not reflect profitability. If a vehicle has a small SL multiplier, it means that it earns too much, and not that it has such profitability. For example, the EBR 54 does 5,000 SL per minute in battles, but should get 4,000 SL per minute, so its SL multiplier is 0.8, and the AMX 13M24 earns 2,000 SL per minute, and should get 2,500 SL per minute, and its multiplier will be 1.25. And despite the fact that the AMX 13M24 will have a multiplier of 1.25 versus 0.8 for the EBR 54, the AMX will receive 2,500 SL per minute and the EBR 4,000 SL per minute. So basically what they're saying here is, when it comes to BRs and ranks, that is not what's in consideration when it comes to the SL multipliers. What is in consideration is how much the vehicle makes according to its repair cost and how much they want it to make, to balance it out. Now, there's going to be a lot of people who aren't happy with this answer because obviously they want vehicles to make as much SL as possible, especially if we're talking about premium vehicles. But the fact is, one of these or this way is one of the things that Gaijin has used in the past to try and keep the economy balanced so you don't have bots taking over the game. If you don't believe me, you can go and play Naval, or at least go and play Naval 6 months ago, when we talked about the Moffat botting and how much people were making SL-wise just by basically just not even playing, just botting accounts and dying over and over again and making SL. If they start doing that in ground, making stuff profitable to be played by bots, then it will take over the game and it will make the game die. It's as simple as that. We've seen it also in REC as well. I made a video a very long time ago when it came to this stuff, like why does SL exist? Why do repair costs exist? And it's because you need a negative incentive, not just to try and not just to try and push the player forward to play better, but also because if you don't, your game gets taken over by bots. And it's been quite nice to see in Naval and also EC to kind of be proven right about that point, because that's what we've seen in those game modes. So yeah, I understand this answer is going to annoy a lot of people because of the way that it's worded, but at the same time, you've got to understand why they have these systems in place. That's all of the ground questions. I think overall pretty good. A lot of positive answers here. Basically stuff that they're working on, stuff that they're pushing through. Hopefully we see some of the stuff soon and we can push forward from there. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Forge, Siegebreak, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, and also Sem Arslan, Wilkski, Uncle Bean, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.